have as a guest in the studio Honorable Nicholas Shehu Garba, representing Jema Azaga constituency in Kaduna State. I got that right.
Yes, you did.
Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. So there are a number of things to talk about. I want to get your thoughts first on the 2020 budget that has just been presented, and I know the House has already started deliberations on it, and according to reports, the House will go on a plenary break, but the committees will do their work on the budget. I want to get your thoughts on the budget so far.
Oh yes, it's like you rightly said, the budget has been presented by Mr. President and is currently at committee stage. It has been debated on the floor, during preliminary, and then passed on, to committees after the second reading, and so it's now the time for the committees, which are subcommittees of the Appropriation Committee, to begin work. And work has commenced in earnest. I'm sure you've seen the flurry of activities at the National Assembly. Agencies and ministries, ministers and head of agencies have been coming to defend their proposals before the various committees. And it looks we're going to be on time, of course, for various reasons.
When you say on time, because I know that there are plans to pass it before the end of the year.
This is the first time in so many years that the budget is being presented in October. It's always come very late. If it comes early in the past, it will be in November. But we had it in October, so we should be able to get it done in 2 months and probably have it ready for us in December, so that we can
get to the January, December.
Meet the executive's desire to have a January, December budget.
You do think that is a good thing, right? Because some people will argue that, it's still a year, whether it's June to June, it's not a problem.
Not exactly. Budget traditionally run for 12 months, and the fiscal year for most organizations and even countries is usually January to December. So you have a budget that runs, concurrent or is in sync with your, with the fiscal budget of organizations, companies, or whatever. Then they could plan properly. They can do their planning knowing what are the indices and what are the fiscal policies of government, monetary policy, and they can plan. But when you don't have a budget, that's synchronized with your own physical planning, it becomes very difficult, especially where your activities are impacted by government actions and policies.
So it's a good thing that we're going back to the.
Yes, it's a good thing that we will be. Hopefully, we'll be reverting to the January, December cycle.
Let's talk about it. I know that committees were just, put together, in the National Assembly, whether putting the House of Reps and Senate, and you are chairing the Committee on Anti-Corruption. Let's talk about what your agenda is, for 2024, your committee especially, the ICPC, the CCB, the CCT. What is the agenda of your committee?
The primary responsibility of the Committee of the House, or Committee on Anti-Corruption, as presently constituted, is to oversight the ICPC, the CCB, that is the Court of Conduct Bureau, and the Court of Conduct Tribunal, and of course any other, to legislate on matters that relate to, corruption or prevention of corruption in the system. The committees, like you rightly say, have just been inaugurated, and their first assignment actually is the consideration of the 2020 budget. And most committees are in the process of drawing up their agenda for the year and probably for the next 3 years. And the agenda certainly will be in sync with whatever the legislative agenda will be for the relevant house, that is the House of Representatives.
So what is the agenda right
primarily,
now
of course, as far as my committee is concerned, is for us to key into the government cardinal program of objective of trying to fight and mitigate corruption and corrupt practices. And I believe our actions and our activities will center on how we can collaborate, or how we can encourage collaboration, how we can support agencies that are involved in the fight against corruption with legislative backing for them to be effective. Of course, it is a fact that corruption is the bane of any society, and corruption is the bane of Nigeria's development. We have been unable to make progress as a country because of poor governance and corruption, as evidenced in the Transparency International Index of Corruption, on which we occupy an unenviable position. So anything that we can do as a country to mitigate and minimize the corruption in the system, I think will be welcome. Can't have development, where
when you have corruption.
The scarce resources that are available, for everybody are cornered by a few, are being frittered either through, enrichment of a few individuals or perhaps even wasted. So I think I don't think there's anything that is more central than the effort that are being put in place to ensure that Nigerians get benefit of the little resources we have. We have so much gap, infrastructure, education, health, or whatever. We need resources to go into this area so that we can, we can achieve the objective of improving the welfare of our people. And we can't do that in an atmosphere where the little resources that we have are being frittered away, through, dubious and, through so many decades.
Talking about that, I mean, I know that Shehu came, into the House on the platform of the PDP, which is the opposition party. What do you have to say about this government's anti-corruption fight so far?
Well, like I say, anything that we do to mitigate or fight corruption, is healthy for the system. But in doing that, we have always emphasized that it has to be party blind. It has to be, it has to be gender blind, party blind. Social status should not matter. And I think that's where we, as a party, the PDP, have a problem with that.
Just because you don't see it as...
We believe that the corruption fight has been one-sided. And we have evidence of in so many cases to illustrate that. We have so many cases, that seem to have been relegated or perhaps pushed to the back burner, probably because of the affiliations of the persons involved. So, but like we said, it's a fight that we need to win, and if we have to win, then I think there shouldn't be any sacred cow.
Right, so you are saying that, yes, you are for the anti-corruption fight, but it needs to be fought, in general, holistically.
Yes, whoever is involved, I think the law should apply. And the agencies should go after everybody that's involved, and not to give soft landing, to some persons, and then
they had a launch, on preventing corruption in the implementation of the NSIP of the government, right? And so they launched a toll-free whistleblower hotline for people to call the ICPC when they witness or know of corrupt practices in the NSIP. What is your view on that? And also, in general, what do you think about the NSIP? Because I do know that going to look at what your party has said about it, that it's not really lifting people out of poverty. But then, ICPC saying we know that there's corruption in what is going on there. It's probably good work, so let's try to fish that out. How do they complement each other?
The involvement or the launch of the toll-free number, I think, is an effort it's an attempt to ensure that all citizens are brought into the scheme of things as far as the National Social Investment Program is concerned. I think this was brought about as a result of allegations and reports of corrupt practices, associated with the program in many parts of the country. And I think, as a responsive organization, the NICP, the National Social Investment Office, seems to be very proactive. This is an attempt to bring everybody on board and recruit everyone into the effort to ensure that this program, that the intention of the program are made, that is touching the lives of the poor,
of the most vulnerable
people. And if there are abuses, this organization cannot be everywhere, and that is where this collaboration comes to play. That people can call a number to report cases or suspected cases of abuse of the system, so that remedial measures can be taken. And the launch of the program today, that is the media launch of this program, I think is a welcome development, because I think Nigerians need to know what is happening, and also they need to have the ability to get involved by querying or even reporting things that are untoward that are associated with the program. We hear people are being shortchanged, beneficiaries that are being shortchanged by middlemen, or the children not being fed what they are supposed to be given, for the school feeding program. And you can only, draw attentions of the agencies involved if you have a mechanism, you have a means. I think that's where this
that's the number. We will definitely give out number.
But as far as the program is concerned,
what do you think
I
about
think the verdict is still out in terms of determining whether we are really achieving the objective. Personally, I believe people should be taught how to catch fish rather than giving fish to feed them. But
if the person is starving, he's not ready to learn yet. He just wants to eat fast before he can learn.
And that's why we subscribe to the fact that there are the poor of the poorest, and perhaps need to be able to survive first before thinking of how to
catch fish.
We must make sure that this gets to the people, the kind of people that is intended, and that not some people who don't deserve it, cornering what is meant for for the most vulnerable in
society. You represent your constituency, Kaduna State, as a Jema Saga constituency. We had news recently in Kaduna. Of course, we've had several news about insecurity happening there, about killings and things like that. But we had one now about abduction and killings. Kaduna Abuja highway. That highway has been notorious for things like that. I want to get your thought on the issue of insecurity, especially, which is like one of the biggest challenges that we face right now, especially
You've said it. I agree with you. Insecurity is probably one of the greatest challenges that Nigeria faces today. So much resources have gone into fighting, insurgency and other form of insecurity over the past 10 years. And these are scarce resources that would have gone into improving, infrastructure and other social services that we badly need in the country.
Yes.
Unfortunately, you can't achieve anything in the area of development when in an atmosphere of insecurity, and that is where we believe something needs to be done. Yes, you've mentioned Kaduna. It's true that Kaduna has been in the news of recent, but if you read the papers every day, listen to the news, the entire country is engulfed, in insecurity. Yesterday I read about a school also in Edo, abduction and killing, and no part of the country seems to have been spared. And that is why we believe, I think we need to put our acts together. The security agency needs, to re-strategize. If we have been fighting insecurity over the past decade and don't seem to be making headway, then it means we need, to have a paradigm shift. And I think that's where we have a problem. You can't continue doing, something the same way and expect a different result. So if we've not been able, to stem the tide of insecurity in the country, it means we have not been doing things rightly. And that is where we believe that the security agencies, I think, need, to put up their thinking cap, go back to the drawing board and see what is it. Can we leverage on technology? What can we do? Can we leverage on community involvement? Community policing or community vigilante? Because you can't have policemen in every house. So we must come up with some strategies to be able to, But I believe technology too can play
a very important role
in fight security. But until we get the security situation right, we can't we can make progress on the economic and social sphere.
Hmm.
I mean, you can any governor or anybody today who is talking about foreign investment is only is only is going on a jamboree. No foreigner is prepared to come to Nigeria today. I've had so many cases. I have so many interaction, where people tell you they can't even come to Abuja. You talk to foreigners, inviting them even to Abuja, they don't consider. I've had cases where embassies and foreign countries are inviting their national not even to come even into a place like Abuja. And I'm sure you are also aware that most of the embassies in Nigeria have issued travel advisory to all the ambassadors and other functionaries not to venture outside Abuja and probably Lagos and any other city that they can only fly. They can fly, only into cities that they can fly into and fly out. They should not even travel by road. So in this kind of atmosphere, what progress can we make when investors cannot come? Contractors cannot work freely on the site. Engineers are being kidnapped. While trying to construct road or put up power facilities. I mean, and they are being kidnapped. So when we don't have those skilled, manpower coming into our system or working within our system, then it means we can't progress, we can't make development because there's certain skill that we don't have. We need foreigners to come in here. And if Nigerians don't even feel safe in their country, you don't expect foreigners to
feel
so
safe.
this is really an issue. We hope the government will be able to.
I wanted to access the government, assess the government so far, on their fights, against the security. There's so much going on. I know that the House invited the military, to come, talk about this. I think there was sometime last month. I had the military talking about NGOs, calming down on NGOs because they feel that some NGOs are assisting some insurgents and things like that, especially in the Northeast. What do you think about what this administration has done so far in the fight against insecurity? And then after that, we'll talk about what the military has to say about NGOs and what they see as, the reasons why the fight doesn't seem as successful.
Well, like I said, so much resources have gone into this fight, and the government has, listed the fight against insecurity as its number one priority, of course, followed by the fight against corruption, and thirdly, the economy. They have been on this. I mean, this government now is in its fifth year. In its fifth year. But like I say, the question we should ask ourselves, and we should ask the security, is that has there been improvement in the situation? There could have been, successes recorded, especially in the fight against insurgency in the Northeast. But what about the general security, of the citizenry all over the country? Has things gotten better or worse?
Do you think it's about resources? Whether you're looking at the police, who are, of course, the civil security, agency for
I'm not an insider. I wouldn't say I have all the facts, but of course I believe it's a combination of many factors. There's the inadequacy of personnel. There's also issue of resources and facilities. And that is where we believe that the security agencies should be able to to respond, to react, and then change strategy, where I must say a lot of resources have gone into it. It might not be adequate, but we've been putting a lot of resources, far more than any other, sector or segment of the economy. We've put so much money into security in the past, 10 years, and I think that we should be able to carry out,
an audit? Yes, like an audit should be carried out.
You should carry out an appraisal to really determine what really are the issues. But we believe that we should be able to leverage on technology, and I doubt, if we have been fully explored. I give you an instance. Okay, I come from Kaduna. I need to travel to Kaduna. I mean, if I'm on the road to Kaduna today and maybe I happen to witness or maybe fall into the hands of maybe criminals, I don't know the number. There should be a kind of a toll-free number that is known to everybody that you could call. You don't give me a 08079 something number and you tell me that you can call the police. Can you remember that? Nigeria is the only country that don't have emergency number. Simple numbers that citizens can easily call and alert. This is just a basic requirement, a business that is leveraged in most societies. Why should we not have national emergency number or emergency numbers that are probably operational within certain geographies? You should have a number in Abuja that you can easily call. You see something on tower.
I know Lagos had a few numbers at some point for emergency.
Yeah, Lagos has been quite proactive in its approach to security. But I bet you don't have a number. If you notice something happening in front of your studio, you don't have a number that you easily recall in your head. Why? With all the progress we have made in telecommunication, why can't we get the service provider to be able to give us dedicated numbers that is very simple and is of application nationwide?
What do you think is a solution for the Kaduna-Abuja highway? That has been notorious for a lot of criminal activities.
Well, I can't say because I'm not an expert. I'm not, I don't have all the information. But I feel there should be no security challenge that should be beyond the capacity of our security agencies to address. Why can't we leverage? We have assets. The military has assets. You have helicopters. You have planes. You can, and if we need support, I believe if we need technical support from outside the country, we can. We have all the means to be able to get this support. These people, I have read situations and cases of kidnapped victims coming or being released, and they tell you that no security agent has ever thought it necessary to even approach them to find out where were you taken to, or
after even the fact, to get information from them.
To get information. I've read so many cases of victims of kidnapping telling that nobody has bothered to even call on them or visit them, even when they are willing, So it shows you that there is a disconnect in the whole exercise. Putting policemen or soldiers just on the road does not really address it. Because you can't line soldiers from one end of the road to the other. Yes, there are always going to be gaps, there are always going to be openings. But when it happens, what follows? I mean, that's why we believe that security agencies need to be more proactive. If they really want to, get to the root and really address the thing, I believe they know what to do and they are capable of achieving that objective. So I think we need to do more.
We need to do a lot more where that is concerned. I'm talking about resources and what has been budgeted for them. Let's talk about the 2020 budget and the funding of it. We know that there is, servicing debt. The Minister of Finance just came out to say it's very difficult to even service debts right now. And we do know that the debt of Nigeria has risen way more than, regular right now. There are a lot of people who are afraid of the debt ceiling and how much borrowing we're doing. The finance minister says that we're approaching the World Bank again for, I think it's $3 billion again, another loan. Aside the fact that we're servicing, a lot of loans right now. Most of the budget is recurrent and servicing of debts, basically. I want to get your thoughts, on that.
The Nigerian budget, I must say, is one of the most unfortunate kind of economic management system that we've gone through in the recent past. Almost the entire earnings of the country, what the country earns as revenue, goes into paying salaries and overhead of less than 10% of the population. That is the civil service. The entire earning of the country goes into servicing, a population of less than 10%. That is the working force, civil servants. Because we are borrowing 2.4 trillion naira, which is almost the same amount that we have for capital expenditure. So everything we earn as a country is going into paying salaries and overheads. So we need to borrow to fund the capital. In other words, not a single kobo out of our earning is going into building roads or building hospitals or building schools. We have to borrow. So the entire earning of the country goes to pay salaries and pay, for our life, for the luxuries of the civil servant. Of course, the National Assembly inclusive. I mean, when we talk of the civil service, we're talking about, the legislature, the judiciary,
Public officers in
public,
general.
public officer, because we are borrowing almost the same amount of money that we are using to service debt.
The debts.
Yeah. So, where is the problem? Until we begin to invest in infrastructure, begin to invest in what we need to create jobs for our people in order to prepare our youth for tomorrow, we can never make a progress. And how do we do that? Number one, we have to look at how to cut down on this, waste, on the bureaucracy. Nigeria has over 500 ministries
MDs.
and departments and agencies of government. I doubt if there's any other country in the world that surpasses Nigeria, and we're still in the process of creating more.
A few more ministries have been
Yeah,
added now.
Yes. We're still in the process of creating more. This government came into power with the promise to ensure that they will work to ensure that at least 30% of the total, expenditure of country goes into capital vote. But rather than improve on what they found on the ground, we now having just a bare 20% of the total expenditure going into Ghana, and that is not even possible without borrowing. We have to borrow to do that. So that is a challenge we have, and at this rate, we can never fix the roads, we can never fix our schools, we can never improve on our hospital at the rate we are going. So what does it require? It requires a leader who is ready to take very tough decisions. There are so many areas that we could take the hat and bite the bullet, go through the pain, but we see improvement in short time. Number one is the subsidy. We are spending over, I believe, we don't know what is the figure now, but
Yeah, it's called
we're
under
spending,
recovery right now.
Yeah, well, the government has changed the name because they criticize subsidy, but they are paying the same subsidy, giving it a new name. They're giving it a new name as under recovery. But that is an area that we could immediately tackle. We could also rationalize these agencies. There are quite a lot of agencies of government that can easily be realigned and rationalized, in order to save costs. But no one is ready. And as long as we are not ready to take the hard decisions, no country ever gets out of difficulty, out of the wood, without taking very difficult decisions. That will be painful.
But here's the thing. I want to put forth an argument that some people have where subsidy is concerned, right? Or under recovery, as the government calls it now, that the average Nigerian, has a lot of things that they do not benefit from government, that they have to provide for themselves. Cost of living has gone up. Buying power has reduced. If you take out the subsidy or the under recovery, what's going to happen is that you're going to have the price of fuel go up astronomically. And then, of course, how many of the citizens, can afford that? Knowing that the power situation is not good, has still not been resolved, So at the end of the day, that seems to be like the one thing that you can rely on. Like, okay, at least I can buy fuel for this amount. But by the time you take out that, there's also the concern of what's the certainty that this subsidy that you're taking out or the under recovery will be channeled towards infrastructure. There's a trust deficit between the people and government. So there's no guarantee that if you take it out, you're going to channel it towards infrastructure. So it's like a lose-lose situation for the average Nigerian. So you take it out, I pay much more, but I don't see infrastructure development. There's no guarantee I'll see infrastructure development. So can I stay with the certainty of the subsidy that I see right now?
Well, it's a chicken and egg kind of situation. It is also the argument: how many does the poor, those below the
poverty
line, do they really benefit from the subsidy? The average Nigerians in the rural and local area doesn't enjoy.
They have bypass my neighbor generators.
Yeah,
they buy fuel for it.
Well, that is still an insignificant proportion. You know, the average man who lives below the poverty line doesn't own a generator. The argument is made that the
But he
subsidy,
buys stuff
the
from
bulk,
people who have
that is
generators, and then the
insignificant.
price
That
goes
is
up.
insignificant.
You think it's insignificant?
Proportion of Nigerians, you know, benefit from the subsidy.
Some will argue that is not true.
Well, like I said, there's no, you know, there's always, you know, what you regard as an opportunity cost. Every action of government, and especially actions that have the capacity to bring about long-term benefit, will probably have, like I said, there will be pain. Some pain will go, but in the long run, take the, we can use, it might not be a good analogy, but use the case of the GSM. When it first came, how much was it? The same thing will apply to fuel. Remove the subsidy.
Well,
Yes, the price will go, but I can tell you that in the long run, there's going to be a tapering off. And
because you're saying insignificant, those people will still take buses, and once fuel goes up, you know, prices of transportation goes up. So that affects every Nigerian. It's not an insignificant number.
That is the challenge for government. Let me give an instance. If removing subsidy, for instance, would give us money in 2 or 3 years that we can build a railway from Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja to Kano, do you know what that will do to our economy? I mean,
I understand what
people
but,
will
you know, like I said,
will go through hardship in 3 years, but you know, imagine putting a railway that, you know, they crisscross this country in 3 years. You can imagine the implication for the average man.
Absolutely. You know, but like I asked earlier, what is the guarantee for the average Nigerian to trust the government to channel all of this infrastructure?
Government must be truthful. Government must be able to engage its people, and it must keep to its promise. If the removal of subsidy in the next 3 years will enable us to have a railway from Port Harcourt, Enugu, you know, Makurdi, and probably to Maiduguri, we can put a railway in 4 years or in 3 years, I think Nigerians will be ready to go through that sacrifice if they know that they're going to have that ending. So it's a question of trust, and it's a question of keeping our promises, making promises and keeping them, knowing what is it that we need as a country. No country ever developed without something like the railway. That Nigeria has survived, you know, so far without a railway, we can never move. It is, you know, anybody that talk about development without Nigeria, without having the ability to move heavy goods from the port inland and vice versa, move goods from the hinterland, you know, to the coastal area, we can never move. We can never be able to bring about enduring improvement, you know, in the life of our people. We must have factories. We must have, and you can't have factories thriving in the north or in the, you know, in the northeast, northwest, when they cannot bring their raw material cheaply, and they can't bring, you know. I know a situation, someone who brought in 3 containers from 3 days ago, paying almost 800,000 naira to move a container from Lagos to Abuja.
Wow.
Add that to his cost of production, and
everything goes up.
Everything goes up. But if this thing was going to come on rail, I mean, I don't think it will cost him more than $1,000 or maybe $700 to move a container from him, and thereby being able to, you know, to expand production. So it's a question of taking critical decision, very painful decision. You don't get out of the kind of situation we are without taking painful decision. As long as we continue to adopt these palliative measures, avoid taking the hard decision for so long, are we going to continue in this very sad situation that we are as a country, where all social indices, you know, are on the downside.
Let's talk about, you know, cutting costs and everything, because a lot of the times, I mean, because some will argue that, well, it's easy for you to say this because your fuel is bought for you as a lawmaker. I mean, there are a lot of things that have been taken care of for you as a lawmaker, which is one of the things Nigerians keep talking about when they talk about cost of governance, even in the National Assembly. Like, you know what, reduce costs. Whatever is budgeted for the National Assembly, like, you know, you could do better. You're talking about reduction. I'll call your attention to what, you know, a fellow lawmaker in the Senate was talking about that. You know, let's reduce number of senators, let's reduce number of House of Representatives. How do you think the National Assembly factors into this? Because you're talking about MDAs and all of that. What about the National Assembly?
Nigerians, I think, could be very, very, very sentimental. There's, you know, sometimes we seem to lose track of, you know, issues going on. What is the budget of the National Assembly? The budget of the National Assembly this year proposed, not passed, is 125 billion out of 10.4 trillion naira. It is not even 1%.
You're thinking it's
We're making,
significant.
yeah. I'm not saying that the National Assembly can also not, play a role in terms of reduction in the cost of government. But there's so much noise about 1% of the budget and leaving the 99%.
Well, maybe it's
where is the 99% spent?
Nigerians are talking about everything.
Yeah, we should. Let's get the argument going. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's all cut down costs. There's so much talk about National Assembly buying vehicles. The National Assembly, the legislator or the senator is at the same level as the minister. Do you know how many aides of the minister ride in four-wheel drive? The vehicles they're talking about buying for members of the National Assembly are ordinary saloon cars. And you have SAs that are supposed to be, far on below, below the member of the National Assembly, riding in four-wheel drive. A minister driving with 4 backup jeeps, going after him. Nobody talks about that. I know a ministry where the cost of running the minister's office running to hundreds of millions, 200, 300 million. Nobody talks about that. So we should get the conversation going, and we should be very holistic. We should look at the things systematically, look at the issue systematically, and begin to address the problem in the manner that I think we can really answer.
I mean,
the National Assembly become the bashing,
well, you are representing the people anyway, so yes, they can call on you every minute.
Yeah.
We're talking about that. I mean, the budget is before you right now, which means that MDAs will come for defense of whatever. So I mean, is there any way to look at running costs and call attention to this and say, okay, you know what, this is what you want to use for this. This can be approved, and this because they can't spend money without your approval.
Yes, that is done, but to what extent? To what extent are we until we have some agreement, some kind of consensus, a national consensus? What they bring, is virtually what they bring is what goes out. There's a limit to what, when the legislator try to make the kind of adjustment that perhaps Nigerians want to see. That's where issues coming about budget being padding or whatever. I mean, and all manners of things.
So do you think that the legislature is being unnecessarily bashed by Nigerians?
I believe so.
That's what you think?
Yes. Before having spent 9 years in the National Assembly, I believe that the legislator is really, is largely misunderstood. And
what do you think? What do you think you can do to change that? I mean, because
all other institutions of government, we need to enlighten our people. You need to be educated. We need to be educated. There's so much, lack of information and will I say education to even at the level of the media that is supposed to be the watchdog of all the arms of government. There's this lack of capacity and lack of information. So much happens, I mean, I was discussing, with one of the participants at this program, and I just mentioned some few things that, that happens that, we are not, until we begin to have critical press, I think we're not going to have,
I mean, that's another conversation for another day. If I try to get into that, we would not finish the show. But I mean, you're talking about the fact that new MDs are also being created, new ministries are also being created and all of that. But let's talk about what the implementation of the new minimum wage, what that does to the overhead of the country, recurrent expenditure. Right now, Labour and of course the government, they have been having conversations for many days. There's a tentative agreement according to the Minister of State. We haven't seen the fine print yet, but there's supposed to be some increase across board. Because the changes have to be reflected, which means that whatever recurring we thought we're paying, it goes up exponentially.
I believe the federal government, I can't speak for the state government, most state government budgets are just coming up, but the federal government, I think to a large extent, has factored in
I think about the 160.
They have factored in the increase. I mean, if there's going to be a differential, I don't think it was going to be much, because the federal government has largely factored that into the budget. So, and of course, it is as a result of this proposed increase that we had further reduced the amount available for capital expenditure which was almost hitting 27, 30% in the last two budgets. Now it's come down to 20, largely as a result of this adjustment that we made. So we're still on the same trajectory of, making all the money and just spending it.
Spending it on paying salaries.
Paying
Now let's talk about the proposed VAT increase. What's your thoughts on that?
It's a fact that Nigeria has one of the lowest tax to GDP ratio
Yes.
In the world, which means a lot of us are not paying our taxes. A lot of we are not paying what we should be paying, and until we begin to improve on that, that is, everybody gets to pay his tax or improve the tax to GDP ratio. Of course, we wouldn't have enough resources like we're talking to develop our infrastructure and bring about improvement in the standard of living of our people. So the VAT increase, it can be argued, whether this is the right channel, the right time, and perhaps the tax that should be brought to bear on Nigerians. But the government wants to raise revenue and it has identified that it's still a proposal.
It's a proposal because it still has to come to the National Assembly.
So we don't know what will be the outcome at the National Assembly. It's going to pass, or maybe they're going to come up with some other suggestion. But for now, that is the area that the government has identified as one of the easiest way to
raise revenue,
to raise some revenue, to augment the budget. So wait and see.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this last question because I'm looking at what the governor of Ekiti State had to say. Governor Kayode Fayemi, he was talking about scrapping the Senate, saying that what we really need is the House of Representatives. I mean, like I said, Senator Rochester Okorocha had talked about it and said, can we have one senator per state and all of that, and talking about how 109 senators and 360 member House of Representatives gobs millions of naira. But the governor was saying that, well, what we actually, of course, talked about cutting MDAs and all of that, but he also said that what we really need is a House of Representatives because that is what represents the people. What are your thoughts?
I don't know the context, in which the statements were made.
They were talking about cutting cost of governance, basically.
But like I did say in one of my remarks, when you're talking about cost of governance, I think we should be able to focus on the critical mass. If you're talking about cost of governance, and you're looking at a 1% of
Italy reduced the lawmakers.
1%, I believe, is a misplaced.
Italy reduced the lawmakers.
Priority. But let's come about representation. Nigeria is a country of almost 200 million people, and in a representative democracy, you want the people to have a voice. And if you're talking about countries with a population of less than 10 million having 200-300 representatives, I mean, how many representatives would you have for 200 million? I don't think we have a blotted legislature when it comes to relating the ratio of representative to the size of the population. I came back from Liberia, and it's a country of just about less than 7 million, and they have almost the same numbers of legislators in Nigeria, but 7 million population, which is not even bigger. It's not even up to half of Lagos State. So I wouldn't think, And when it comes to the issue of cost of governance, I think we should begin to look at where the bulk of our,
Well, I understand you saying that, but it just seems like you are very defensive.